I am back. Sorry my last video cut out so quickly. I deleted everything from I put all my videos from last night in the trash, but I didn't empty the trash, so I still only got about 9 minutes of recording. But uh I was pretty much at my point anyhow. But I will now read chapter 2 of The Dark Night of the Soul, because as I didn't have much time to explain last night, and I've deleted my stuff off out of my trash, so I can speak comfortably now. But there was a time when, before I converted to Catholicism, I was going to be a priest, an Anglican priest. I had wanted to be a Lutheran pastor before, but whenever I no longer found it possible to be Lutheran, and I and being Methodist didn't work out either, and I settled on Anglicanism, I was going to be an Anglican priest. And due to circumstances in my life, that wasn't working out, and I found myself I found myself angry at God for giving me such a strong calling to serve him in that way. I felt a strong calling to serve him. In retrospect, I'm not sure, actually I'm quite confident at this point that that is not how God wanted me to serve him. But God gave me a call to serve him, and that was the way that I chose to do it, which was not the way by which he wanted me to do it. But I was angry, and I said uncouthful things to God. And then in confession, ironically enough, I was wanting to be an Anglican priest while still being willing to go to my Lutheran church, because we had an interim pastor who was an old German who was still very confessional. And I didn't vote for her, but the parish had voted to bring in a woman in place of a presbyter, but she hadn't been placed yet. We still had the interim pastor, so I went to him for confession. And that was when he told me about this book, The Dark Night of the Soul. And he explained to me how what I had experienced could be found in this work. So I've wanted to read it for a long time, and that's, as I said last night, I don't want to rush through a bunch of writings, because by the time I read a book of St. Augustine's Confessions, I'm tired and fatigued, and I struggle with something even as short as this. So this is something important. This is something that I really want to read and absorb, and I hope that you are willing to sit through it as well. But I will now start on chapter 2 of Some Spiritual Imperfections to which beginners are liable in the matter of pride. First imperfection, spiritual pride fed by Satan, rebellion against confessors, deceitful confessions, pride of impatience with self. That is a thing, isn't it? That really is a thing. Pride of impatience with self. And I know I haven't even started reading, so it's quite likely that I'm reading new meaning into that. But even if I am not... Oh, wow, this chapter 2 is long. Wow. With a very, very short chapter 3. Fluctuation. Anyhow, I have the time. It'll probably be a 30-minute video, but I have the space. But it is interesting how, and I'm sure the church has a word for it because they have a word for everything. But it is quite possible to mortify yourself to the point of pride. And I'm not sure if you're proud of your own ability to mortify yourself or if you are intentionally or if you are by if you subconsciously believe that you are underselling yourself for the sake of an outward piety. Or it could be either or both. So that's pride of impatience with self. That's a neat one to think about. Continuation, conduct of the humble beginner. 8 to 10 marks or 8 to 10 marks of true simple spirituality, how the humble man bears his own imperfections. Is that what these are? Oh, I see. So they're numbered in here. So each of these were numbered. Each of these things I just mentioned were numbered. And then in the paragraphs, they are numbered. So I'm going to reread those with the numbers and then place the numbers at the beginning of each paragraph. So 1, first imperfection is spiritual pride. 2, fed by Satan. 3, rebellion against confessors. Or wait, what did I say? 2? 1, 2, fed by Satan. 3, rebellion against confessors. 4, deceitful confessions. 5, pride of impatience with self. 6, continuation. 7, conduct of the humble beginner. And then it says 8 to 10, marks of true simple spirituality. And then I guess section 2 is how the humble man bears his own imperfections. So section 1, that being imperfection 1 through 10, or 1 through 8, I suppose, begins with, when beginners become aware of their own fervor and diligence in their spiritual works and devotional exercises, this prosperity of theirs gives rise to secret pride. Those holy things tend of their own nature to humility because of their imperfections, and the issue is that they conceive a certain satisfaction in the contemplation of their works and of themselves. From the same source, too, proceeds that empty eagerness which they display to some extent, and occasionally very much, in speaking before others of the spiritual life, and sometimes as teachers rather than learners. That's a big thing. There are very many myself included. And I try very hard, and it is very difficult. And I probably should altogether avoid conversation if I want to be sure to avoid this. But it is very common for a brand new Christian or a brand new Catholic or a brand new anything in the Christian realm to, out of their enthusiasm, want to teach the world what they know. And it is very important to understand that you know nothing. There are at least a countless many men who have thought exactly as you have and said it more eloquently than you ever could. Same with myself. And I may be a bit of a hypocrite just by nature of me saying that, because I am voicing an opinion while being young about how you shouldn't voice opinions while being young in your faith. But I do my best and admit boldly before you all that this is so much larger than myself, and the whole purpose of this reading is for some of this to rub off on my insignificance. But I at the same time, I think that if we humble ourselves to the point of, I think we can also humble ourselves maybe in the same way as what you would call pride of impatience with self. I would say that you can also be prideful of your own humility, to the degree that if God has given someone a gift, they pride themselves in denying themselves of that gift. They don't pride themselves in denying themselves of the gift, but they deny, though they might hold those gifts in their heart as pride, outwardly they deny the gifts out of having pride in their own humility. I believe if you think that God has given you the ability to do something, or even the possibility of a talent or blessing, then you should be aware of it to the extent of being willing to exercise it for the good of his kingdom. And I believe that I have a decent mind, and I have a basic working knowledge of language to the degree that I can read, think, and convey ideas in a simple matter that simple-minded folks such as myself can understand complex ideas. And that is a big portion of why I am here. So, my mental gymnastics I go through in order to read these things and continue talking about them like I know something is to understand that I do know something, but I do not know, I know nothing near the extent of the most unintelligent theologian. But I know that of the things I know them. And if I know that I know them, then that gives me a certain pass to talk about them, with peers at the very least. So uh, by that admittance that I give myself, I will continue. They condemn others in their heart when they see that they are not devout in their way. Sometimes also they say it in words, showing themselves herein to be like the Pharisees, who in the act of prayer boasted of his own works and despised the publican. This is uh, imperfection 2, fed by Satan. Their fervor and desire to do these and other works is frequently fed by Satan. In order that they may grow in pride and presumption, he knows perfectly well that all their virtue and works are not only nothing worth, but rather tending to sin. Some of them go so far as to desire none should be thought. Oh, some of them go so far as to desire none should be thought good but themselves, and so at all times, both in word and deed, fall into condemnation by detraction of others. They see the mote in the eye of their brother, but not the beam which is in their own. They strain out of they they strain out the gnat in another man's cup and swallow the camel in their own. That sounds disgusting. Just saying. 3. Rebellion against confessors. Sometimes also, when their spiritual masters, such as confessors and superiors, do not approve of their spirit and conduct, for they wish to be praised and considered for what they do, they decide that they are not understood and that their superiors are not spiritual men because they do not approve and sanction their proceedings. So they go about in quest for someone else who will accommodate himself to their fancy. For in general, they love to discuss their spiritual state with those who they think will commend and respect it. They avoid, as they would death, those who destroy their delusion with the view of leading them into a safe way, and sometimes they even hate them. Presuming greatly on themselves, they make many resolutions and accomplish little. They are occasionally desirous that others should perceive their spirituality and devotions, and for that end they give outward tokens by moments, sighs, and diverse ceremonies. Sometimes, too, they fall into certain trances in public rather than in private, whereunto Satan contributes, and are pleased when others are witness of them. Many of them seek to be the favorites of their confessors. Oh, this is 4. This is, I believe, deceitful confessions. Many of them seek to be the favorites of their confessors, and the result is endless envy and disquietude. I'm guessing they never stop confessing. They are ashamed to confess their sins plainly, lest their confessors should think less of them. So they go about palliating them. Yeah. Palliating them that they may not seem so bad, which is excusing rather than accusing themselves. Sometimes they go to a stranger to confess their sin, that their usual confessor may think they are not sinners. But good people, as so, they always take pleasure in telling him of their goodness, uh, that they are not sinners but good people. And so they always take pleasure in telling him of their goodness, and that in terms suggestive of more than is in them at the least, they wish all their goodness to be appreciated, when it would be greater humility on their part, as I shall presently show, to undervalue it and wish that neither their confessor nor anyone else should think it of the least importance. 5. Pride of impatience with self. This is going to be the big one. Some beginners too make light of their faults, and at other times indulge in immoderate grief when they commit them, or the faults, and indulge in immoderate grief when they commit them. They thought themselves already saints, and so they become angry and impatient with themselves, which is another great imperfection. They also importune God to deliver them from their faults and imperfections. But it is for the comfort of living in peace, unmolested by them and not by God. They do not consider that they have to deliver them. They would become perhaps prouder than ever. They are great enemies of other men's praise, but great lovers of their own, and sometimes they seek it. In this respect they resemble the foolish virgins who, when their lamps gave no light, went about in search of oil, saying, "Give us of your oil, for our lamps are going out." 6. Continuation. From these some go on to very serious imperfections, and come to great harm thereby. Some, however, fall into them less than others, and some have to contend with little more than the first movements of them. But scarcely any one can be found who, in his first fervors, did not fall into some of them. 7. Which is conduct of the humble beginner. But those who at this time are going on to perfection proceed in a very different way, and in a very different temper of mind. They grow and are built up in humility, not only looking on their own works as nothing, but also, dissatisfied with themselves, they look upon all others as much better. They regard them with a holy envy in their anxiety to serve God as they do. For the greater their fervor, the more numerous their good works, and the keener the pleasure therein, the more they perceive. For they humble themselves. How much that is which God deserves at their hands, and how little is all they can do for him. Thus, the more they do, the less they are satisfied. 8. Which is the marks of true simple spirituality. So great is that which they in their love would fain do, that all they are doing seems nothing. This loving anxiety so importunes and fills them that they never consider whether others are doing good or not. And if they do, it is, as I have said, in the conviction that all others are much better than they are. They think little of themselves, and wish others to do so also, to make no account of them, and despise their works. Moreover, if anyone should praise and respect them, they will give them no credit, for they think it is strange that anyone would speak well of them. They in a or 9, well these are 8 through 10. 9, they in great tranquility and humility are very desirous to learn the things that are profitable to them from anyone. In this respect, the very opposite of those from whom for those in this respect, the very opposite of those of whom I have just spoken are willing to teach everybody, and who, when anyone seems about to teach them anything, take the words out of his mouth as if they knew it already. But they, of whom I am now speaking, are very far from wishing to instruct anyone. They are most ready to travel by another road if they be but commanded, for they never imagine that they can be right in anything. When others are praised, they rejoice, and their only regret is that they do not serve God themselves as well as they. They have no wish to speak about their own state, for they think so lightly of it that they are ashamed to speak of it to their own confessors. It seems to them unworthy of any mention whatsoever, but they have a great desire to speak of their shortcomings and sins, which they would rather have known than their virtues. Thus they incline to treat of the affairs of their soul with those who have no great opinion of their state and spirit. This is a characteristic of that spirituality which is pure, simple, true, and most pleasing unto God. For as the wise Spirit of God dwells in these humble souls, he moves and inclines them to keep his treasures secretly within, and to cast out the evil, for God gives this grace together with the other virtues to the humble and withholds it from the proud. Now, this is part 2, which is how the humble man bears his own imperfections. These will give their heart's blood for him who serves God, and will help him to serve him to the utmost of their powers. When they fall into any imperfection, they bear up under it with humility and meekness of spirit, and loving fear of God, and hoping in him. But the souls of God who in the beginning travel thus towards perfection are, as I said, few, yea, very few, and we ought to be content when they do not rush into the opposite evils. This is the reason, as I shall hereafter explain, why God leads into the dark night those souls whom he will purify from all these imperfections in order to their further progress. Pretty good stuff once again. And I think that'll do it for the night. But if you enjoy what I'm doing and you want to continue listening to these things with me and learning with me, make sure you go ahead and leave a comment on the video, and I'll see you tomorrow, I suppose. Thank you, and God bless you.